In the opening lecture of his series Freeing the Butterfly Within, Brother Khalil Jaffer gently introduced his audience to a concept that at first glance felt mysterious, even curious. He acknowledged this openly, reassuring everyone that its meaning would soon become clear. That evening served as an introduction to a much deeper exploration he intended to unfold over the coming nights. Brother Khalil explained that the heart of his lecture series revolves around understanding a profound truth. Every human being possesses two distinct natures, though most people mistakenly merge them into one. Recognizing and differentiating these natures, he emphasized, is absolutely essential for spiritual growth. Without this awareness, true evolution of the soul becomes impossible. He described the first nature, Tabi'ah. It is the physical, instinctive, almost animal-like part of us. This nature is tied to our survival on earth. It drives us to eat, sleep, reproduce, seek pleasure, avoid pain, compete, and protect ourselves. In this sense, he noted, we are not so different from other creatures. We may wear suits and sit in boardrooms instead of roaming jungles, but the underlying impulses remain the same. To avoid confusion, Brother Khalil clarified linguistic misunderstandings around the term nafs. In languages like Swahili, Urdu, or Gujarati, the word carries meanings unrelated to its Arabic sense. But in the Qur'anic context, nafs refers to the instinctual, lower nature of the human being, the part we share with animals.
Human beings have two distinct natures that are often confused and seen as one. And that recognizing these two natures in a human being as two distinct natures is crucial for anyone's spiritual growth and development. We cannot evolve spiritually unless we recognize these two natures. The first nature is what we call Tabi'ah. We come to this world, we all know that our stay in this world is temporary. We acknowledge this time and time again, that we have come to this world for a trial, we've come to this world for a test, we've come here for a short while, this is not our final abode, we will die and go to our permanent homes. We know this. To survive that physical experience on this planet, so to speak, we have a physical body. This physical body is driven by an instinct, an animal-like instinct. And it is this nature, this animal-like nature that we call Tabi'ah. Now I need to clarify here because I know a number of us here are immigrants from East Africa and we speak the Swahili language. In Swahili we also use the word Tabi'ah. Do not confuse Tabi'ah with Tabi'ah. When we use Tabi'ah in Swahili we normally mean a habit, a good habit, a bad habit. We talk of Tabi'ah Nzuri, Tabi'ah Mbaya and so on. The word Tabi'ah in Arabic is not the same as what Tabi'ah is in Swahili. In Arabic a habit would be Ada, which we again use in Urdu or in Gujarati as adat. Okay? Tabi'ah is simply nature. It would be translated as instinct or nature, but for the purpose of these lectures we are defining it as animal instinct or nature that is similarly found in animals just as it is found in us. For example, animals spend all day foraging for food. We do the same. They might roam around in jungles and forests hunting animals. We wear a suit and tie and sit in our cars and drive on the highway, but we're still foraging for food, especially when we get into the meeting rooms and the boardrooms. Okay? So we see that in our eating habits, in our sleeping habits, in how we reproduce, in how we relieve ourselves, in our physical nature, in how we're constantly in search of pleasure or fleeing from pain or fighting for survival, we are no different from the other creatures and species on this planet. And this is the result of that nature that is called Tabi'ah.
Against this stands the second nature, the Fitrah. This, he explained, is the divinely inspired essence placed within every human soul, unique, pure, unchangeable, and forever oriented toward Allah. Drawing from the Qur'anic verse Surah Ar-Rum, verse 30, it is translated, "Set your face to the upright religion, the fitrah of Allah upon which He created mankind." He described fitrah as an inner compass. It can be neglected, denied, or buried under distractions, but it can never be altered. No matter how far we drift, it always points back to God. This duality, The tension between animal nature and divine nature is the foundation of the entire series. Humanity's greatest problems, he argued, arise from confusing these two natures or allowing the lower self to dominate. But when a person learns to recognize, honor, and follow their fitrah, the potential for transformation becomes immense. So radical, in effect, that it resembles the metamorphosis of a caterpillar into a butterfly. This is the essence behind the metaphor, freeing the butterfly within. Every one of us enters this world as a kind of caterpillar, a being focused on survival, instinct, and physicality. Yet hidden within us lies another nature, capable of ascending to an extraordinary spiritual heights. The task of life is to evolve from the caterpillar self to the butterfly self.
In order to ensure that we do not forget our true identity, that we are not the physical self, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has then wired us with a far more superior nature that is more innate, that is more deeply ingrained in us, and that is called fitrah. Now fitrah as well, sometimes we translate it as instinct. But here when we speak of fitrah, we will define it as a divinely inspired nature that is unique to human beings. Okay? And it is this fitrah that is mentioned in the verse of Qur'an that I recited at the start of my lecture from Surah Ar-Rum, chapter 30 of the Qur'an, verse 30. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا. So set yourselves, set your hearts, set your faces, set your direction upon the pure faith, upon this Dina Hanifa. فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهِ. That divine nature that Allah has set mankind on. فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ. You will not find any change or any alteration in how Allah has created this. ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ. That is the upright religion. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But most people do not know this. So there is an emphasis here that your understanding of religion as well, when we say Islam is the most natural religion, Islam does not oppose human nature. What we mean is it does not oppose your fitrah. We do not mean it does not oppose your tabi'ah. And as we discuss the differences between these two, we will see how important it is to distinguish these two. Our fitrah is a compass within all of us that always points to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is something you cannot change. You can hide it, you can deny it, you can attempt to skew it, you can justify it, but you cannot change it. It always points to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is like having a massive ship in which there is a compass. The compass will point to a particular direction. The captain on the ship might decide to ignore the compass, might decide I am going to go in a different direction. He might move the whole ship, everything will move in a different direction, but the compass will still point to one direction. It will refuse any other way. This is to ensure that you have no excuse on the day of judgment for going astray. This is fitratullah allati fatara an-nasa alayha. That fitrat within you. Most of the problems in humanity is a result of confusing these two, or ignoring the fitrah and allowing tabi'ah to take over our nature. If we can recognize the difference between these two and the importance of fitrah over tabi'ah, then the potential for change within us is so massive. We can change in such a radical manner that it is no less radical than the transformation or the metamorphosis of a caterpillar to a butterfly. Hence the subject freeing the butterfly within. In other words, we all come to this world as caterpillars. Our mission, if we so choose to accept it, is to evolve into that butterfly. And we give this example because no creature changes so radically. If you look at all the other species, you will find there are creatures over a period of time, they shed their outer skin, they grow a new skin. Human beings as well, they say every 7 years, all the cells in your body have replaced themselves with new cells, but you don't visibly see the change so radically. You just see an aging process. But with a butterfly, you see a very radical change from something that looks like a worm to something that is beautiful and flies like a bird. Okay? And we will make this our analogy, where we constantly, when we talk of going from tabi'ah to fitrah, we will see this as going from that worm-like or caterpillar-like state to that butterfly state.
To help listeners detach from their physical identity and remember their true nature, Brother Khalil introduced a striking analogy. We are aliens on this planet, temporarily inhabiting a body designed merely for survival in this environment. He compared the human body to an avatar, an outer shell worn by the soul during its earthly mission, much like the Sanskrit concept of avatara, describing the descent of a being from a higher world into a lower one. He supported this idea with Qur'anic references in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 36, noting how Allah commanded Adam and Eve to descend to earth, a word that suggests human originate from a higher realm. Our earthly life, therefore, is a short training period before we return home. But after years of living inside this avatar-like body, most people forget who they truly are. They begin to believe they are the body, its appearance, its desires, its limitations. This misidentification fuels temptations, anxieties, and fear. Brother Khalil explained that temptations feel overwhelming precisely because we think the body is our true self. When we forget our fitrah and live only from our physical nature, courage weakens, spiritual clarity dims, and the soul feels imprisoned. He then invited listeners to imagine how strange it would look, from a spiritual perspective, to see how much time we spend obsessing over maintaining, decorating, and pleasing this temporary body while neglecting the soul it carries. If we truly saw ourselves as divine beings in a temporary shell, much of our stress, insecurity, and vanity would fall away.
The reason why we are not able to resist temptation or have that courage that we want to have within us is because we do not distinguish between tabi'ah and fitrah. And because we do not distinguish between these two, we tend to be more tabi'ah driven, because that, as we shall see, is more instinctive. Or to put it differently, when you do not recognize fitrah, then you identify with the body as your real self. Half the challenge is to disidentify from the body and say, I am not the body. To understand the importance of disidentifying from this body, or to help us disidentify from the body, let us suppose that we are aliens on this planet. Now, if we are aliens who have come from a different world, and we have come to this planet only for a purpose, we are here to learn certain lessons. We have come here as a blank canvas, or we have come here as a block, and we are sculpting at this block and evolving our souls. We are developing something that will emerge at the time of death. Then in order to survive in this harsh environment and in this planet where other animals roam as aliens, we would have to come into a body that can survive on this planet, into a body that can breathe the air in this planet, that can eat the food in this planet. And that is exactly what it is. Now that we have to come to this world, we live in this body that is very humble, but that is perfect for this environment. And it is for this reason that you see this dichotomy, or this strange difference between how divine, how pure, how magnificent the human soul is when Allah speaks of it, versus the physical body and how humble it is, isn't it? Think of how we eat. What do we eat? We grow things from the ground, plants, fruits. We kill animals and we eat the carcass of dead animals. We wash the blood away and then we roast it on fire. And then with these digits and bones, we pick that flesh of dead animals and we have a hole in the face we call a mouth. We put that in and then it goes down a pipe and and this is our body. Why are we so weak, so humble, so base outwardly? Because we are aliens here. So we take this assumption. Now, so an alien needs a body to carry it. And if we take that in mind, then we immediately disidentify. Now we're thinking very differently, isn't it? Now we're thinking, I'm not from this planet. I'm from somewhere else. And I will give you evidence for this from Qur'an very shortly. Now, thanks to technology, animation, if this is still difficult for you to understand, perhaps if I use the word avatar, you'll all understand what I'm talking about. For some of us, the word avatar might be new, because we've just seen a movie perhaps, and now we understand, oh, that's what he means. He means, I'm actually from another place, and I had to come into this other body that looks like a monkey or looks very different, just to survive, because I have a mission to complete here before I go back. Okay? But let's talk about the word avatar. Sometimes if you want to really understand something, break the word down. Look at its etymology. Okay? In modern terms, the word avatar is normally a computer image or a computer model that represents and is manipulated and controlled by a human user. So you might, for example, go into this simulated world on the internet where you have your own avatar that represents you and you dress it the way you want it and it behaves the way you want it and you control its actions in that make-believe world. But the word avatar actually is an ancient word. It actually belongs to Sanskrit. Sanskrit is a very old language. It is even older than Arabic. And it is a language that is revered and upheld by the Hindus. In Sanskrit, this word avatar comes from avatara. Avatara in Hinduism literally means the descent of a god or a deity or a supreme being from a higher domain down to this world in human form or in animal form. Now see the significance. The key operating word here is descent. Avatara is the descent of a supreme being coming down to this world. Can we find this idea of coming down to a lower, baser form in this world from Islam? Yes. In Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2 of the Qur'an, verse 36, Allah does not say to Adam and Hawa, go now to the world. قُلْ نَهْبِطُوا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌ. We said to them, descend and go down, where you will now be enemies to each other. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌ وَمَطَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ. And on this earth now you shall have an abode for a little while, and sustenance or a means and a provision for a short while. Do you see how the verse is worded? There is that later part to it, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌ وَمَطَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ, that on this world you shall now have a temporary stay and provisions for a while, إِلَى حِينٍ. That itself suggests that this is a temporary stay. But what is interesting is that Allah says to them, ihbitu, go down, descend. And that suggests again that Adam was from a higher world. In his essence, as a prototype of us, we belong in paradise. We belong in a higher realm. As part of our training now, in other words, we come to this world, and now what we are attempting to do is journeying back home. We are trying to return to that lost status that we had, and even beyond that. And there is some wisdom in this. There are some lessons we are meant to learn in this journey as we try and return to our original state. The problem, of course, is that after I have lived in this alien body, after I have lived in this avatar for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, I completely identify with it. It is now very difficult for me to realize that I am not this physical being. And this is a temporary cage. This is a temporary garb I wear. This is an extra, I wear clothes on an extra clothing or layer over my soul that will perish, that will fall apart. And then I return to my next level in my journey towards paradise. And this can be very liberating when we disidentify from the body, because then a lot of our confidence as well does not come from what I look like. We begin to realize when we look at our lives and how it has evolved since we have been 20, 30, 40, as we grow older, we begin to realize that Allah has given us just the perfect physical body to allow us to accomplish our purpose in this world. Whether I am tall or short or dark or fair or handsome, or I see myself as ugly or able-bodied or disabled, becomes irrelevant. Because I realize I am not the physical body. Perhaps for me, if I hadn't been handicapped, or perhaps for me, if I had been more good looking, or perhaps for me, if I had been more intelligent or whatever, I may have had other challenges that would have hindered me from progressing to that level. Then Tabi'ah has three characteristics. The first is it will always seek pleasure. The second is it will always flee pain. And the third is it will always fight for survival. You will find this in animals, and you will find this in yourself. Instinctively, you will want to save yourself first before you save others. This mode of survival, or this mode of selfishness is part of Tabi'ah. Whereas Fitrah, we shall see, is selfless. But what we want to say here, and I'm coming towards a conclusion, is how absurd does it now sound when we realize we are not the physical body, and we see how much importance we give to the physical body. I'm an alien on this planet. This is an alien body. This is an avatar. But I'm occupied all day and night on keeping this avatar young, forgetting the mission I'm here for and who the real person is. I'm constantly Googling for anti-aging cream and decorating my home. Every year I want new paint, new drapes, new furniture, because I have completely forgotten who I am and why I'm here. I'm completely identified with the physical world. This is permanent to me. This is my world. And this is the nature of Tabi'ah. It is fighting for survival. It is seeking pleasure. It is fleeing from pain. It suffices to say that if we come to realize the difference between Tabi'ah and Fitrah and these two natures within us, and we then make an attempt to move towards our Fitrah and allow it to emerge and show itself within us, as we have said, the change is radical. We will see that in ourselves, and others will see it in us. But before we can do that, before we can move from Tabi'ah to Fitrah, before we can move from being caterpillars to being butterflies, it is important that we look at this in all its dimensions. How does this start? Where does it stop? What are its pitfalls? At what are the stages that we go through from being a caterpillar to being this butterfly that we seek to be? Okay, what are the things that will plague us, and what are the methods we can do to protect ourselves?
To conclude the introductory night, Brother Khalil previewed the journey ahead. The series would examine the characteristics of the animal self or nafs versus the divine self or fitrah. how they complement each other and how they clash, why striving toward the butterfly state brings pain, struggle, and growth, how societies shaped by instinct differ from those shaped by spiritual nature, and finally, how to raise children whose fitrah remains alive and central. These discussions, he promised, would gradually illuminate how every human being can undergo an inner metamorphosis, one as dramatic and beautiful as a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. Thank you for watching. Let's make a difference together. If this video inspired you, hit like, follow, and share it with others. Your support helps spread knowledge and positivity, building a community where we all grow. Every like, follow, and share makes an impact. Let's keep the momentum going.